Are we good? Okay. I'd like to welcome everyone to this regular meeting of the Delray Oaks City Council. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here. I would like to start off first with roll call.
Councilmember Uy,
Present.
Councilmember Halleck,
Present.
Councilmember Shirley,
Here.
Councilmember Berger,
Here.
Mayor Donaldson.
Here, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, next up is public comment. General public comment must deal with matters subject to the jurisdiction of the city and the council that are not on the agenda. Anyone wishing to address the city council on matters not appearing on the agenda may do so now. There's a time limit of no more than 3 minutes per speaker, and public comment is now open.
Gary Krieger. Whoa, am I close enough? Over at Quindale. Just wanted to bring up. I know we're small. We got limited resources and all that. But piggybacking off some of our bigger neighbors, and I'd like to point out one of them is Stone Creek Kitchen was empty for what, 4 years, maybe a long time. Lost all that revenue. Now we got someone said now we lost the pet place is closed. The veterinarian's closed. I would encourage us to, now we've talked about this, about the vacancy ordinance, tax, whatever you want to call it. Seaside's looking at it. So maybe we watch what they're doing, and if it works for them, maybe we can piggyback off what they're doing. And they do a lot of the heavy lifting for us, and we can just cut and paste. And along with that is also the water, right? I know that Marina Coast is supposed to be looking at desal, but you know, it's going to be a lot of hoops to jump through before they get that. Well, Seaside's fighting with them about getting more water beyond the 45 or 65, I can't remember the hookups now, that are gone. Seaside's fighting that battle. So just saying we should watch what happens with them, and if it works for them, cut and paste, maybe it works for us too. So just, I want to say keep our eyes open, and maybe we can piggyback off some of the work that our bigger neighbors are doing for us, because those are both things that impact us. So thanks.
Thank you, Gary.
Hello, Mayor Donaldson, council members and staff. My name is Megan Range. I'm the new PG&E Government Relations Director for the area. Some of you may have worked with Jasmine in the past. Just introducing myself so you've seen my face. I'll follow up with all of you individually and set up meetings, but just wanted you to know I'm in the area, literally down the street, and I'm here if you need me. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Megan, and welcome.
Hello, I'm Ann Auburn. I live up on Work Avenue. Greetings to all of you. I just have a question. The first Wednesday of every month, there is a truck that goes through that sweeps up the center of the road. I'm curious, how come it's only the center of the road? Because that part's already clean. It's all the gutters and stuff that aren't. Just a question.
Thank you, Ann. Okay, any other public comment? All right, seeing none, I'll move on. We have 4 proclamations today, and the first one is celebrating National Public Works Week. And it reads, whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of Delray Oaks. And these infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals such as Ron Fucci and Sherman Lowe, who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector, who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children of Delray Oaks to gain knowledge of and to maintain an ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. And the year 2026 marks the 67th annual National Public Works Week sponsored by the American and Canadian Public Works Association. Now, therefore, I, Scott Donaldson, Mayor of Delray Oaks, do hereby designate the week May 17th through the 24th, 2026 as National Public Works Week. And I would like to bring up our Public Works Director, Ron Fucci, to accept the proclamation. Okay, we get to continue to recognize staff, which I love, by celebrating or a proclamation that celebrates the 57th Annual Professional Municipal Clerks Week. And it reads, whereas the office of the professional municipal clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world and is the oldest among public servants. Whereas the office of the professional municipal staff provides the professional link between citizens, the local governing bodies, and agencies of government at other levels. And whereas professional municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all. And they serve as the information center on functions of local government and community. And whereas the professional municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of City Hall through participation in education programs, seminars, and workshops, and we recognize them for their accomplishments. Now, therefore, I, Scott Donaldson, Mayor of the City of Delray Oaks, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby recognize the week of May 3rd through May 9th, 2026 as Professional Municipal Clerks Week, and further extend appreciation to our professional municipal clerks, Karen Manami, Laura Batra, Stacy Matthews, for the vital services they perform and their exemplary dedication to the community they represent. And I would like to have Karen come up to the
Right. GSD. Getting stuff done.
Okay, our next proclamation is celebrating the 10th anniversary of Palenque Arts. And that proclamation reads, whereas Palenque Arts, based in Seaside, California, has served the Monterey Peninsula and Central Coast for 10 years as a vibrant cultural organization dedicated to advancing arts, education, cultural preservation, and community engagement. And it was founded by the executive director, Juan Sanchez, who was also a Delray Oaks resident. Palenque Arts has become a regional hub for Latin American, Afro-Caribbean, and global arts programming, offering performances, workshops, youth programs, and community events that celebrate diverse cultural traditions. And whereas over the past decade, Palenque Arts has created inclusive spaces for artists, youth, family, and community members can connect through music, dance, visual arts, and storytelling, fostering creativity, cultural understanding, and an intergenerational engagement. And whereas Palenque Arts has played a significant role in strengthening the cultural fabric of Seaside and the greater Monterey Peninsula by expanding access to the arts and uplifting voices that reflect the richness and diversity of the region. And the organization's commitment to education and community center programming has positively impacted countless individuals and families, inspiring the next generation of artists and cultural leaders. So therefore, I, Scott Donaldson, Mayor of Delray Oaks, hereby recognize and celebrates the 20th anniversary of Palenque Arts and commends the organization for the outstanding contributions to arts, culture, and community. And I was hoping that Juan would be here today. I know he's a very busy man, but I'll make sure that proclamation gets to him and his organization. Okay, our last proclamation is celebrating National Pride Month. And with that, I'll turn it over to Councilmember Bowie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And it's that time of the year. We're gonna start our festivities again. Yeah, so with this proclamation, I really want to thank our mayor, Scott Donaldson, because this really like manifests how inclusive and welcoming our community is. And this shows really like that we support dignity and visibility, equity, and the rejection of hate or bias. So I'm very honored to read the proclamation on behalf of the City Council. So proclamation of the recognition of Pride Month of June 2026. Whereas the City of Delray Oaks is a welcoming community and an exceptional place to live, work, play, and raise a family. And whereas Delray Oaks has a diverse lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and questioning, which is LGBTQ plus community, and is committed to supporting visibility, dignity, and equity for all its residents. And whereas many of the residents and business owners within the city of Delray Oaks who contribute to the enrichment of our city are part of the LGBTQ plus community. And whereas Delray Oaks is strengthened by the diversity of ethnic, cultural, racial, gender, and sexual identities of its residents and business community members, all of which contribute to the character, talent, economy, and leadership of our city. Whereas, while critical steps have been made toward full LGBTQ plus equity and equality, members of our national, state, and local community still face discrimination, exclusion, and prejudice simply for being who they are and for whom they love. And whereas discrimination against people from the LGBTQ plus community around the world make it imperative for cities like Delray Oaks to stand up and show support for our LGBTQ plus residents. And whereas we respect and celebrate the richness and variety of cultures, values, traditions, and uniqueness as they contribute to the tapestry of our community. And whereas each of us can and should promote inclusiveness, celebrate diversity, support all fellow community members, prevent the spread of misinformation, and reject hate and bias in all forms, which will make Delray Oaks a stronger and healthier community. And whereas June was chosen as National Pride Month to commemorate the 1969 protests and demonstrations in response to raids at the Stonewall Inn in New York's Greenwich Village. And whereas June has become a symbolic month in which LGBTQ plus community and allies come together in various celebrations of pride. And now, therefore, be it resolved that Scott Donaldson, Mayor of Delray Oaks, do hereby proclaim the month of June as LGBTQ plus Pride Month and encourage all residents to actively promote, support, and help build a culture of inclusiveness and acceptance. Signed this 19th day of May, 2026 by Scott Donaldson, Mayor of Delray Oaks. Thank you. And Mr. Mayor, I also would like to plug in and invite everyone. We're gonna have a simple pride flag racing on May 31st. It's a Sunday. It's gonna be at 3 p.m. this time. So watch out for more of the flyers that will gonna be sent out. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, John. Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Are there any items that any council member would like to pull from consent? Okay, seeing none. Are there any items that the public would like to pull from consent? Okay, also seeing none, then I'll accept a motion.
So moved.
Do we have a
Second.
second?
I
Okay.
second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Right, motion passes. Okay, old business, we have no old business, and the one item we have on new business, obviously a very big one, is consider the proposed budget for FY 2026, 2027. And I'll turn it over to the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is just the first look at the budget for you all for next fiscal year. We already went to the Planning Commission meeting a couple of weeks ago and got input from the Planning Commission. It's been a long day. The Planning Commission doesn't care about, well, they do care about the budget, but they don't have input. They do care. Wrong, poor choice of words. Did I mention it's been a long day? So we went to the Finance Committee and we got input from the Finance Committee because that would make a lot more sense. And so last year when we brought the budget forward, we mentioned that we didn't have a structural deficit, but we did have to do some belt tightening in order to get our budget balanced. And that's going to become an ongoing theme unless the economy changes and people start buying discretionary items at the grocery store and buying a lot more gas. Our revenues are never going to, well, our current revenue streams are never going to keep pace with our expenditures and our increasing expenditures, and we'll get into details on that in a minute. But so this so far is just our first whack at trying to bring our budget into balance. We're still about 96,000. Beth will give you the exact number in a minute. Off, we're still looking for areas where we can do some fine tuning on the budget. So this is a first whack. Probably what we're going to do, because this is taking a little bit longer for other reasons, is if the mayor is up for it and we can schedule everybody's calendars, probably have a special meeting in the second week of June to, did I hear a ah? Okay, good. Have a special meeting just to talk about budget and really dial it in and get the details and start talking about capital projects and that kind of stuff. So this is going to be a general overview. And since you all are probably sick of listening to me talk to you about budget, I'm going to let Beth get into the details of it. I'll jump in every once in a while to give some context and some plans on where we're going with things and what's happening. And then Beth will continue. Thanks, Beth.
Hi, good evening. My name is Elizabeth Mariano, RGS Finance Manager, and we are going to present the budget. We are pleased to present to you the fiscal year 2027 budget. It took hours and meeting with the staff to put this budget together. And there's a lot of line items and pages and numbers and columns, but we prepared the highlight, a summary. And if you have any question at the end, we will be glad to answer them. The first slide, this is just a summary of the general fund budget. As you can see, the estimated revenue has been increased to by 6.1%, and the expenditure by 1.6%. We have a CIP 78,000, which were provided in the budget packet in detail. And John had mentioned that we are going to use 97,310 from the fund balance. And including the 78,000, that's 175,000 overall. Next slide, please. And this chart shows the city's revenue. The top three is the airport sales tax and property taxes. We met with the HDL, and sales taxes increased 1.5%. Property taxes increase of 2%. And the rest of the revenues, they just remain flat. There's a few increase here and there. And again, these are on your budget packet line items.
Right. So Beth, if I can just add a little context. So we met with HDL, who are our consultants on our sales tax revenues. We're doing a little bit better than the region as a whole, but minimally, and our region is doing better than the state as a whole. For whatever reason, we have very limited sales tax revenue generators, but they're pretty rock solid. They pretty much maintain for the last several years about a 1.5% increase each year, which is good. We don't see the same fluctuations in sales tax that some of the other cities in the region see. Part of that is because we only have such a small number of them, but also they're doing good business and they have a very stable, reliable customer base. So that's good. That's a positive. But there's also only a few of them. So if there's a downturn in the economy, we could be impacted significantly. So right now we're doing okay.
Next slide. This chart is for all the revenues. We're presenting it by department. As you can see, the police department is the top 59% or 58% of their budget. And this is 50% funded by the airport. There's some increase in most of this line item, mainly the liability insurance by about 148,000, and this information was provided by Embasia, and we used their draft budget. We're still waiting for the final. So that's what we used to calculate the liability insurance, workers' comp, and the property insurance. And there's health and vision and medical dental. That's about 71,000. And we use 10% to increase that every year. So it stays the same. And the UAL by about 27,000. So that's the major increases in each department. There are some salary steps for the employees that are still within the range. And there's no COLA in this budget. We have one police vacant position that we're funding. And so we have 5.5 million in our supplemental appropriation for fiscal year 2027 budget. This is the summary per department, and the percentage, there's a change, and these are provided in your agenda packet if you wanted to review the line items per department. And again, it's 1.6 increase overall in our operating budget from fiscal year 2026. Next. This slide, we just wanted to show you the contributions that the city is making to nonprofit organizations. As you can see, last year, we listed 14,625 and we rounded and budget 15,000 and it stays the same. This is the estimated fund balance. What this means on the first column, that's the audited number. 3.6, that's the ending fund balance for general fund. And if we receive all the revenue that we budgeted for fiscal year 2026 and expended everything that we budgeted for 2026, our estimated fund balance at June 30, 2026 is 2.9. So from that amount, we added the estimated revenue, we minus the CIP, transfers from general fund, and supplemental appropriation for expenditure, which is 5.5 million. And the deficit is 175,000. This is the number that we are going to slightly use the unappropriated fund balance. So after the calculation, the remaining unappropriated fund balance is 1 million. And we have designated for economic uncertainties of 1.6 million. Next slide, please. This is the last slide. I just wanted to point out that these are the only project that we are funding this in this budget this year. 45,000 for the vehicle replacement, a server which we're going to need for next year, 20,000, radio replacement 10,000, technology replacement 3,000. This does not mean that we're going to spend all of this. I understand from the police department that they're going to buy a vehicle for fiscal year 26-27, and we've been saving money to have the budget available, to have the funds available. And same thing with the radio replacement and the technology replacement. That's the last page, right? So that concludes the budget. And John,
Yeah.
if you have any questions,
Talk in
we'll be
detail.
glad to answer them.
Yeah, I'll go over a few things first before we do that. So, so we talked a little bit about revenues. Everybody knows I've been beating this drum for 5 years since I got here. Our revenue streams are very narrow and they haven't changed at all significantly for forever, for as long as your city's been a city. And so they're very susceptible to downturns in the economy. And any downturn in the economy hits all of our revenue streams at the same time. We've, as I said, just a history lesson, we've had some bridges that have helped. The cannabis, the dispensary, that really helped. Fortunately, the city council at the time was wise. And when that first year of windfall of $900,000 came in, first year or two, they didn't get big eyes and spend that on toys and gadgets and things. They wisely put that aside as a reserve. So that's why we have the reserve that you see today. And we're fiscally more sound than we were ever in the past because of that windfall. As you've seen, our revenues, tax revenues relative to that business have dropped off. Not just us, around the state that's happening, but it's definitely happening here. It's an adjustment in the market. And, in California, we grow significantly more cannabis than is consumed here. And as long as it's still regulated and illegal at the federal level, they can't take it across state lines. So that's impacting the industry. And all of us, those of us being cities and counties who saw revenue source, got a little greedy and issued too many permits. And so the market is saturated and there's more dispensaries than there's demand. And so that's impacting revenues. So that's a revenue source that we don't really rely on. TOT has become a really solid revenue source for the city. If and when we do get development out on the former Fort Ord property, a hotel is going to be critically important. A hotel, our two best opportunities for broadening our revenue streams and diversifying our revenue streams really are a hotel or a car dealership. Car dealership's not happening. So hotel, that's our one best option. Marina got lucky and they stole the last car dealership. So that's not a good site for it. We've got to be creative for the future and hopefully get some development going out there. But the development, is 5, 10, 15 years into the future before we start seeing any significant revenue from anything that we do out there. So we need to be mindful of that and be mindful of how we budget and looking for other smaller revenue streams potentially to bring in to help bridge that gap, get us to that future when we have a bigger revenue opportunities for the city and a bigger city. So cost drivers, what's really impacting us, Beth alluded to a couple of those items. Our biggest cost driver right now in increasing our budget, we don't give out a lot of raises here. We try to keep staff with other incentives other than salary. We are by far the lowest paying agency in the region, but we keep excellent staff here because of the community and because of they're very mission oriented and they love working here, and we have good work environment, and we provide other incentives and other training opportunities and things like that. But so that's not the cost driver. The cost drivers are things that are outside of our control. So Beth mentioned liability insurance. Our liability insurance has been going up 30% a year. And we've been told from our insurance carriers to expect that for the foreseeable future. They tell us that we're lucky because other insurance pools that we're not part of, they're seeing 40% increases. So we're performing better than a lot of our other regional partners, but 30% is a huge increase, and it's a lot. It's a lot to budget for, and it impacts our ability to provide the services that we provide. But it's the cost of doing business in California. Also, health insurance premiums keep going up this year. They're going up 13%. That's another significant impact. So those are the kinds of pressures that we're dealing with. And so over the next year, I'll be bringing to the Finance Committee at least discussions about options for coming up with just options on what can we do to either bring in new revenue or expand the revenue sources that we have. We have potential opportunities. Everybody knows we had the garden center down by Work Memorial. That's empty now. I think that there's an opportunity there to do something big for the future for the community, but that's going to require a partner. And so we have to find a partner, and we have to be thoughtful about that and talk to the community about community input and what the community like to see down there before we go looking for a partner. But we don't have the resources to do something. We're going to need a partner, just like the city of Monterey did back when they decided to become a visitor tourism destination. They took properties that they had and they went out and found private partnerships for the wharf, for hotels, things like that. Cannery Row, where they did what are called ground leases to work with private investment groups and private businesses to come in, and they did the improvements and they built the buildings and they built the restaurants and the hotels and fixed the wharf, and in exchange they get long-term leases at a very favorable rate to help pay back for the upfront capital investment. So that's an opportunity for down there, but that's going to take thoughtful discussion, and it's going to take a while to turn that around. So we want to look for something that maybe we can use that down there for temporarily that might bring in some revenue. So those are the little things, but then there's also other things. Maybe we want to talk about TOT, and maybe we want to talk about increasing the cap from 26 to 30, say, or something, because TOT has been a very consistent revenue source for us, and it continues to go up and continues to increase every time we lose a short-term rental operator. We immediately have somebody knocking on the door wanting to do another short-term rental. So it is an opportunity. I'm not suggesting that we do it, that we increase the cap, just that it's an available option to discuss. We also have the ability, or you all have the ability, to increase the TOT tax from 12% to 13% or 14% if you want. Again, I'm not recommending that. I'm just saying these are things that we can talk about for in the future about options for expanding our revenue sources. Because these cost drivers are not going to go away. They're not going to change, and they're not going to decrease. They're going to continue to hit us year after year after year. And this year we made, you can see in the budget presentation, we went through and with a red line pen and went through and made fine-tuned changes in every line item, trying to squeeze our belt as tight as we can. And so we're making service level reductions, but we're making service level reductions that frankly, those of you in the community aren't going to notice, but the staff are going to notice. And even the council is going to notice, because opportunities for training, opportunities for travel, those are the first things that are going to take hits. And so, but eventually in a year or two, we're going to start to get to service level reductions that community members will start to feel and see. So it would be better if we can have a plan to mitigate that or not get there at all. So that's what we're going to be talking about for the foreseeable future, and how to wisely use our fund balance if necessary to bridge some of the gaps and get us through some of the belt tightening that we might have in front of us. Also, we had hoped, Beth and Karen and Laura and Stacy and I had hoped we got new budgeting software. This is the fourth agency I've been at where we've implemented new software for finance and budgeting. When I was at the county, it took us 5 years to implement. Well, it took 5 years to plan and then 5 years to implement. So we were hoping that we were going to be able to have something to present this year in an actual automated setting with better graphs and all of that. Best laid plans. We had unforeseeable staff issues and sicknesses and things, and it's just a lot of work to learn a new system and to work with a new company on how do we move the information back and forth. So all that to say that we had hoped to have a lot more colorful and easy graphics to show all of you and to better explain the budget to all of you. But we won't have that until next year because we didn't want to show something that's half baked and not ready for prime time. So next year you all will get to see that. And this year we're still budgeting in Excel spreadsheets and
Old-fashioned way.
the old fashioned way, right?
But we have uploaded a lot of information in there, so what we're planning to do is continue uploading and use this fiscal year 2027 budget as our sample and produce something that we can use for next year and just update. But yeah, we've been working on using ClearGov.
Yeah. And so, yeah, the only other big thing that we haven't talked about yet, but we'll talk about it the next, when we do the special, if you allow us to do the special budget meeting, will be capital projects. Just spoiler alert, for those of you who live on this side or those of you who drive on the south side of town, you all know that Rosita Road is slumping into the creek. And so how we deal with that is going to take some time to figure out what that's going to look like and what costs associated with that is going to take time to figure out. But clearly that's a priority for us before we lose an important road. So that is going to be our number one priority, is figuring that out. And then once we have an idea of what that looks like, then we can talk about whether or not we have capability of addressing other capital projects. So that's going to be my discussion and recommendation to you all at the next meeting. And with that, can I answer any questions?
Okay, do you have anything else that you need to present? You know, Beth?
No.
You're good. Okay, I'll start
Thank
with the
you.
council first. On the very end there, Vice Mayor Berger.
Thank you, Mayor. I think I speak for the council and say we appreciate all the hard work that everyone's put into this. It doesn't make us feel warm and fuzzy, but I feel that we have the right mindset and the right leadership to get us past this. Hopefully we get something that falls in our lap that will create revenue, like something with the former gardens spot. I would definitely like to entertain the idea of increasing at least not reviewing our STO permits and seeing how we can take advantage of that as well as increasing taxes on that. Even if it's something, well, I don't know how you make it temporary, but it's great to help bridge the gap. I know the staff is cutting the fellows and cutting back. It sounds like there's a plan in effect, and thank everyone for that. Appreciate it.
All right, Councilmember Ui.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I want to thank staff with the team of Mr. John Gurton and also the team of Beth for putting together what it seems like to me a clearly thoughtful budget. I mean, very conservative. And I know that we're putting numbers in there and then we're spending it within our means. And I just have some questions. Yeah, I know that the budget is not one of those interesting topics to talk about, all numbers, and but I just would like to know things, and so that of course probably the public would also be able to see the bigger picture of our budget. Yeah, so the first question, John, like just for the public's awareness. So with this budget that we have, is it a structurally balanced budget?
It's not.
It's not.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's 97,000, right? Is the gap that we're trying to make up. And so, at the last meeting when Roberto was presenting, he talked about how other agencies that he works with, how they tend to balance their budget. And I've worked at other agencies like this. And the easy way to do it is to tweak your revenue forecast and just increase. The state does it all the time. The state over forecasts revenue all the time and then says, no, our budget's great. But we don't do that here, or at least we haven't done it since I've been here. And we budget very conservatively. Even if Beth thinks I'm getting a little crazy, she tells me, hey, I don't know about that revenue source. And then we talk about it, and we're very conservative. And frequently we're always we err on the side of caution. And so we would rather under budget projected revenues and then come back in mid-year and then happily tell you guys, hey, great, it's coming in better than we expected, and then increase the revenues, then have to come back and say, oh, we overestimated our revenues. And so now we got to make cuts, because that's never a fun discussion, especially mid-year. So we have a little bit of an imbalance. It's approximately what it was last year. The difference is we've already made the cuts just to get down to. So we're going to have to sharpen our pencils and go through. I think we can make up the imbalance and get it into balance without having to eat into general fund balance. I think we can do that. It's just we still have to have some more time to talk to Ron and the chief and see where we can do a little bit more belt tightening and be a little more creative.
Yeah. Thank you, John, for that response. And you also mentioned to us earlier about diversifying our revenues because we're heavily dependent on our sales tax revenue, and of course the projection that you have shared with us is gonna be flat. So this is also one of the things that I'm worried, because what are the practical impact or implications even for next year, even if our sales tax would underperform even modestly? What services would probably be affected? And I know I'm praying that it would overperform, so we're gonna have more sales tax, but what if it underperforms? Thank you.
So yeah, so like I said, we budget conservatively. So I'm hoping that, unless there's some unforeseen thing that happens to the economy over the course of the next fiscal year, I'm expecting that revenue should come in where we project them to. But if there is something happens like 2008, where that kind of hit us out of nowhere, and there is a significant downturn, that's why we have the economic reserve. And so it doesn't mean that we have to use the economic reserve, but that's when I'll come back to you all, Finance Committee first, and we'll talk about what are our options. And cutting services, which means cutting staff, because the services are provided by the staff. That's how that's how government works. So, any service reduction generally translates to staff reduction. So that's an option that we would be considering, but we always have the opportunity to use strategic reserves. That depends on what our analysis is and what our economic advisors analysis is of whatever the situation we're in economically. Is it a 2008 multi-year economic downturn that we really have to adjust for, or is it just a short-term downturn and we're going to come back? I don't know because it's a hypothetical, but all those are things that we would have to consider before we come back and make a recommendation on options for you all to consider. But that reserve, which we didn't have 10 years ago and we do have now, gives us options that we wouldn't have had before.
Yeah, so that's really like a big relief. Like we have that reserve, and I've also seen like even our current budget, like from the previous budget, and how it is performing right now, and it seems like we're on par, So we're really like very good in budgeting. Like, oh, so far, I saw it like we're already like 80% of the fiscal year, and then our budget is really like kind of like the same, like estimated as what we estimated it at the level that we are expecting.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm glad that's really like a good skill. Like budgeting is not really my strength. Yeah. So but looking at our budget right now and then how we are spending and it's really like kind of like the same. Yeah.
So that's a team effort,
Yeah.
and this is the only agency that I've ever worked at where every staff person on staff is keenly aware of our budget situation and is keenly concerned about our budget situation and make thoughtful decisions about how will this impact the budget. Everybody, from the admin staff to the police department staff, everybody is very conscious of what they do and the decisions they make and how that impacts the budget to a degree that I've never seen before somewhere that I've worked. Everybody here really tracks the budget and pays attention to the budget. So it's not all on me and Beth.
Yeah.
It's
so-
the team effort.
Yeah, so but thank you for that for that effort, and it's really like make a big difference. And also while I was reading the budget, I just have an innocent question. So under the council category, so I know that we don't have any more like the money budgeted for the strategic planning. And I know the reason we wanted to save money, but my question would be, how can we have a strategic planning even we don't have a budget for it? Because can we use our own skills or build upon our, we all have experiences here,
Right.
So if we can still do a strategic planning even though we don't have a budget for it.
Yeah, so the budget would be for a consultant to come in and be the facilitator. And that's a nice to have. So I took it out because we need to balance the budget. And so strategic planning would have to be facilitated by me in a team effort with you all. So it would basically, we would all be facilitating our own discussion. And I think we're all adult enough and good enough colleagues to do that in an effective way. And we don't need a mediator, which is a lot of times what that consultant is. They help formulate the discussion. They help explain to any public members who show up, how it all works. And so you're not just listening to me or to the mayor. You're hearing from an outside consultant, which helps sometimes hear a different voice who can explain things in a different way. But that's a nice to have right now. So strategic planning, would be facilitated by all of us as a team effort.
Okay, that's great to hear then.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then also you mentioned to us, of course, our only hope to really like expand or diversify our revenues would be our Fort Ord development. And you also mentioned like that we should have a hotel so that we could really like get more revenues from it. Are there other revenue sources that we should be thinking other than sales tax and also TOT or the hotel? You know, that we can put in our Fort Ord development so that we can really like have a long-term and sustainable revenue. Because I'm thinking like we have to really like diversify. So I know sales tax and also the hotel. If there's gonna be another pandemic that would come, of course, the hotel won't be performing during that time, and then uh, the sales tax would probably be there during the pandemic because, of course, people still need to eat and do groceries. And but what else in other like especially in other circumstances, what should we be thinking that it would be more sustainable, even in any pandemic or any other those unprecedented situations. Yeah.
Yeah, the hotel's our best option for diversifying our revenue stream and bringing in something that might not be, will be impacted potentially differently from economic strains. Um, but you know, we're going to want more sales tax producers out there as well. And then really, so the other tax that we would get is property tax, of course, and property tax initially is going to give us a great bump because of current home valuations. So for the first 5, 10 years, we're going to do great from that increased property tax. But thanks, you know, with Prop 13, we all know how that works, and so that holds everything steady. So eventually we get to a point where for every house built out there, we get to a point where the cost to provide the increase in services starts to outpace the revenues generated from the property tax. So initially we're going to be fine. The property tax is really going to help, but eventually we get to the point where that shifts. And then um, the other opportunities for sustainability with the development out there are funding mechanisms like a community finance district, which you can do for services, you can do for facilities. There's different options. And it's basically an extra assessment for anybody who purchases property out there in order to pay for the increase in services or to maintain facilities associated with that development. And so those are things that we'll be in discussion with a potential developer about, because we need to strike a balance when we're having those discussions on future sustainability of the city as a whole, and how do we increase the size of our city in a way that isn't detrimental to the existing city. It actually is a benefit, but also doesn't place such a burden on the properties out there that nobody wants to buy them. Because, you know, if you buy a house, even when I was talking to somebody today who lives up in Davis, and when he's done paying off his house, he will still have $1,200 a month in CFD taxes that he has to pay every year. So even though you're not paying your mortgage, you're still paying significant taxes, and and he bought into it knowing that. But again, got to strike a balance where the homes are valued at a point where people will buy them and won't break individual banks, but also will benefit the city. So we have to figure out where that is.
Okay, yeah. So thank you. And one last question. Uh, maybe it could be also for Beth. Like, can you help us understand, like what should like of all of the budget items that we have, uh, which of the top two that we have to really like be concerned of? So or I know that the sales tax would be one, and uh because we don't have control of those. So are there any other things in our budget that we need to be concerned of? Yeah.
As far as revenue,
Yes.
um, John, do you have any, because you know more of the revenue? I know we every year we budgeted 2% on the property taxes and sales tax, we rely on the HDL. But as far as the other revenue, just check what was collected and we based it on that, on how we calculate the estimated revenue.
Yeah, our big, well, the one revenue line that we have that is probably most tenuous other than sales tax is the cannabis tax. And that's because we only have one business and it's a saturated market and it's a difficult business to be in right now and to stay in. So,
Yeah.
so I don't know what the future holds for them.
Okay. Okay. So thank you, Beth and John, for responding to my questions. And I just want to thank really, especially the callers. You put those pie charts in there, and it's really very helpful. And I'm also looking forward for next year's because we're gonna have even more automated budget, like
Yes.
data analytics, I guess. Yeah, for those. So thank you.
On it.
Yeah, thank you for all your help and your efforts on that. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, that's all.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Councilmember Halleck.
Have many questions, any questions or many comments, but I do kind of feel like I need to show off a little bit. For those that don't know, my dear sweet mother's right here in chambers tonight, and she is the front row. Love you. Love you from the dais, Mom. And now, Mr. Mayor, with respect, point of order, gross breach of decorum on my part. Hopefully, I've cured that. No, I'd just like to thank Miss Mariano for your efforts. You know, always, however brief, very thorough in your presentations. Great thanks to staff. We've given them their flowers. Just keep pouring them on for all the beautiful work that they do. Staff to include our city clerks, administration, our great city manager, Gerton, and the police as well, in always just being efficient and frugal wherever possible to keep us as solvent as possible. And also to the Finance Committee that's constantly working the budget with one of our core values of fiscal responsibility in mind. And I think that moving forward, there is a reasonable, a practical skepticism with the unpredictable future, as always, but seemingly maybe even more so now than other times have been. And I think that it's very important that we are mindful and looking for some of the creative ideas that you've discussed, some that you've proffered as to how we can, again, sustain and hopefully increase revenue streams. So thank you all.
All right. Councilmember Shirley.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I want to thank again our city manager, Elizabeth, and staff. I know that this is a group effort, and I appreciate your dedication and I do appreciate the conservative nature of the budget. I think that's a smart way to go. As it shows this year, we were operating in a deficit, but it looks like we're going to come out okay. I think, that's what we all want to see. So I really do appreciate those efforts. Something that came into my mind in terms of revenue, and actually it started with Gary and something that you said, John, too. I'm wondering if we would ever contemplate the idea of, we have a lot of water that we have for our Fort Ord property. I'm not sure if we'd ever use all the water that we have in that contract. And so I'm just wondering if there are other cities who would be interested in some of that water. People have talked to me about how profitable it might be to share a little bit of that water. So I think that's something to think about. I don't know if that has ever come up, but I think that's something we should explore, because I think that is something that we have that could be very valuable. So something to think about. In terms of increasing the cap for our short-term rentals, I'm not sure if I'm willing to go there just yet. But it is something to think about next year. So I think that's fine, or increasing the tax on that. let's see, in terms of strategic planning, I noticed that that was taken out of the budget, but I'm happy to hear that you're willing to do kind of a group, facilitation on that. When I see, remember our budget, it reflects our values. And when I see something like strategic planning being taken out, that worries me because I feel that strategic planning is an opportunity for our residents to really take part in providing us feedback and letting us know what their priorities are. And it gives us an opportunity to talk to all of them. So I want to make sure that's not lost, that we do follow through, even though we're taking strategic planning out of the budget, that we do follow through with an opportunity to have us all talk about priorities, and we are going to have a lot of decisions coming up. And so I find that the more opportunities we have for our residents to be able to speak to their wishes, I think that's really important. So you know me, I've had just a few other things to go through. On page 227, talking about it's titled Budget Policy Changes. And so John, you put in there some of the things that are going to come to the Finance Committee, which I was really happy to see. I'm happy that we're going to be talking about that. I think it is a concern of mine that we budget just for operations and that we don't budget at all for capital improvement. We rely on our fund balance for that. And I think it would be smart to kind of, as we move forward, to think about putting a little money aside for capital improvements. I know that, it's hard to do when we're already have a structural imbalance, but I think it's something to talk about. And yeah, many of those other topics in that paragraph, I'm happy that we're going to be covering. I did notice that election costs were not budgeted for this next year in this budget. So we have an election coming up. So just make note, we should budget for that. The other thing is, and I mentioned this during the Finance Committee meeting, I know that under Public Works, the repair and maintenance line item, it seems like we always go over budget. And I know it's for different circumstances, but we may want to think about increasing that budget. Let's see. I know I'm happy to hear that we were going to have a special meeting to talk about capital projects. I know in this budget you have under the FEMA categories, I don't know if this is money that's left over, but you have City Hall facility repairs for $4,851. So when we do have those discussions on capital projects, it'd be really nice to, again, have some description about what that would entail. So we have some understanding about that. So that's a request. In terms of, and Elizabeth had this in one of her slides talking about capital projects. In there, we had $45,000 for a police car, which I tried to clarify this at the finance meeting that it's a reserve that we just set aside $45,000 every year. And so I would like to see that designated as separate, a reserve, so and to know how much we have in that reserve, because I don't know how many police cars. We don't buy that many police cars.
No, but they're
Right.
expensive. They're $100,000. Yeah.
Right. But if we budget 45,000 every year, the airport is also.
Yeah, we pay 45, well, give or take.
But
We never know exactly how much, but it's in that range, 90,000. So that's what we budget, and then the airport pays half. But you're right. Yeah, Beth and I've talked about separating that out because we just put that in the capital fund. So we're going to separate it out into separate technology
because we don't buy one every year. So
we have the last couple of years.
Okay.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
we could because our fleet is getting old and
right.
they're starting. Yeah, so we could replace them every year, but we don't. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just add something to the capital project project right now, they have their own funds. And I explained that to John, that the 301 is the fund. And then the second number is the project. So they are separated by project. As we spend it, that's where we charge it directly, so we keep track. And the budget at the end of the fiscal year for capital improvement, whatever is not expended, we carried it over. So whatever we budgeted, the 45,000 and the carryover, like in this case, we have 90,000 from 2026. That will be carried over for fiscal year 2027 plus the 45,000. So we're keeping track for each CIP by assigning that specific number in the middle, which is a department from the other funds, but for the capital project, that's the number that's assigned for each project.
Yeah, okay. Which is great, but I think it would be good to know because, you know, in an off year, if we know we're not going to purchase a vehicle and we've already saved some money, like maybe that 45,000 be put towards something else. Like I feel like we automatically budget for that every year. Chief Berquin, I'm not saying it's not important, but I mean, in these times when we're having to make these decisions, I think we should look at being flexible with that if we can. Maybe we can't, but maybe I need to understand it better in terms of how much we've saved over time to know whether we
Right.
need to
Yeah.
keep budgeting for that.
Yeah, that's a good point. And yeah, so right now, the way the budget is done is Beth would have to run a report for us to show us all that because the budget is a roll up. And so it doesn't give that level of detail. The new system they'll have drop downs. And so anybody who wants to look at it could drill down, farther. But yeah, in the interim, we can, for the next budget committee or finance committee meeting, Beth can run a report for us.
Okay. That would be great. That would be great. I guess in talking about capital projects too, I know we have a list in here about capital projects. And we have a whole list of capital projects from this current fiscal year. When we do talk about capital projects, it would be good to know what we accomplished this year and what we didn't, what's going to be rolled over, like just some greater detail on that. Earlier, I talked to City Manager Gerton about our 115 trust, which is money that we put aside for our unfunded liabilities. And so I asked for more information on that. So I think we'll be getting that. Let's see. Yeah, you know, I think in terms of additional revenue too, I think I'm anxious to start these discussions about what we can do about the garden center parcel. So I'm happy you mentioned that tonight. So that you know, we need to start thinking about that. So, all right, I think that's it for me.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll take it out to the public. Are there any public comments regarding the budget or anything that you've heard from the council?
Not going to get too close this time. Okay. So the strategic planning's come up several times. Great idea. And we've talked about this before. There's a lot of smart people in Delray Oaks that we would love to get involved in. And one thing and we haven't had one for I don't know how many years now, but great idea. I'm glad we're talking about it. I would just suggest that we try to, I know there's issues, but try to do it on a Saturday maybe, because in the past they used to always do them Friday mornings, and most of us are working Friday morning, and it's hard to go in and tell your boss, I'm going to take off to go to something at the city, right? It's hard to get people here. It would be easier. I know people are busy on Saturdays too, but it would be easier. And like I said, I know there's issues, but something to think about. You'll probably get more involvement on a Saturday than you will on a Friday morning. That's when they seem to always, in the past, hold them. And so just something to think about, because we got a lot of smart people in this town, engineers and business people, and we get them involved and pick their brains. So that's I'm glad to hear we're talking about the strategic planning. It's overdue, and look forward to getting that going. The other thing's not exactly budget driven, but I would just throw it out there. The things that aren't necessarily budget, it'd be nice to get updates maybe once a year, like all our money from, for that's sitting for the South Bend Road, is that collecting interest? When do we have to spend it? What's up with that? Or the money we owe from the settlement? I know part of it's accruing interest, part of it isn't. What's up with that? I mean, just those aren't budget things per se, but I would say for the residents, it might be nice maybe just once a year to do a little snapshot of these things that are off budget and but still important to the city's financial health and to keep people informed about it. So just something to think about. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Gary. Okay, any other public comments about the budget? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council. Beth, could you put up the pie chart with the expenditures on it? Okay, and while Beth is doing that, sometimes the way I like to look at this sometimes is we're a little bit like a couple on a fixed income that are trying to make the day-to-day, pay the day-to-day expenses and just go about your life. And as we all know, expenses will continue to increase. And we've seen that, you've heard that with the liability insurance alone and medical insurance. I mean, you heard in the case of liability, it's up 30%. And, those types of things will continue to go up, as will prices for wages, prices for office materials. That will continue to go up over time. So what we have to do as a city then is one of two things. Continue to chip away at what we have in this city that our residents have come to expect and love. One of the things that you'll see on the expenditures is the biggest part of, that's the revenue piece. Yeah. What you'll see is the biggest piece is the police. And I think I can say with confidence that our residents love our police force, and to see a decrease in services that the police provide, I think will be very much noticed by our residents. And I'm not sure if that's something that they would particularly like. The other areas that you see up there that we could potentially chip away at are all here at City Hall. You're talking what we do here, the city clerks, the folks that do such a great job that we gave a standing ovation to. We want to be able to keep those folks here. And that takes money. And, the office supplies and the things that they're working with will continue to cost more. You look at the fire services as well. I think everyone is very much pleased with the fire services that we receive from Seaside. So what I'm trying to say is there's only a certain amount of cuts you can continue to make, and the staff has done an incredible job of managing expenditure so far. But as those prices and those expenditures continue to increase, I think most folks would agree that cuts to those areas would have a huge impact on our quality of life here. So if you then look at the revenue side and the top revenue sources that we have, the number one is sales tax. So in other words, we've got these expenses and we need to make sure that we have the revenue to cover it and the revenue to cover the increases over time. The first one is sales tax. And the biggest two sources of revenue that we have there is Safeway and Tarpe's. So just like the city manager had mentioned in the cannabis space, we have one business. So if one business is gone, it's going to have a huge impact on the amount of revenue that we're able to take in. One of the items that was mentioned was the garden center. And we're taking a very difficult or a very tough look at that. There's a couple of things with the garden center that you'll need to know. There's a lot of construction down there, a lot of staging of equipment, So finding someone who is going to want to invest anything or want to utilize that property is going to be very challenging to find, especially in the short term, just because of all the construction that's going on down there. We don't want to put in a lot of money, a lot of capital expenditures to upgrade that property until all that construction is gone. But what we're trying to find is a short-term use, a short-term revenue source to cover that gap until all that's done, and then we can look at potentially a bigger type of project down there. So that's one way that we can increase revenue within the footprint we got. I know we talked about development, and that's, you know, a ways down the way, down the road. But in terms of what we have here, that is the one area where we could potentially increase that. Second is property tax. It's pretty steady. You know, it's kind of like a treasury bond that you invest in. It's always there. It's gonna be there. It's gonna be steady. It'll increase a little bit, like the city manager was talking about, as we sell properties and they're at a higher price. We'll get a little bit more money. But nonetheless, that's gonna stay pretty steady. The third is our TOT, which is our short-term rentals. The difficult decision there is we have really two options. One, increasing the number of short-term rentals that we have within the city. And I know that affects the quality of life. And I know our residents feel pretty comfortable with the balance that we have and the number of short-term rentals that we have. But that's the discussion that we would have to have. Or we increase the taxes that those short-term rentals pay. And if we did that, we would be the highest rate within the county alongside of Marina. So once again, that would be another discussion that we would have to have that would impact those transient occupancy taxes. The next thing is business license. Pretty steady. What we found is maybe some of the businesses out there haven't been paying their business license to the level that they should. You may have noticed in our consent agenda, it was a contract for an auditing company, and we're gonna audit and make sure that the businesses are paying the correct amount there. So at least, you know, we're gonna make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing and maybe get a little extra revenue on that side. Number 5 source of revenue is our interest that we have on the basically a savings account that we use or they're earmarked for capital projects. Interest rates have gone down, so the revenue that we've received from that has gone down, but it looks as though interest rates are starting to go back up. Not necessarily a good thing, but if you're a saver, that's a good thing. So potentially we'll see some increase in revenue there. And then I talked about cannabis as well. That's the 6th source of revenue and very tenuous, and you know, realizing it's one business out there that could leave us very quickly. That has potential to put a larger gap in our revenue streams. So as was mentioned, long term, what we're looking at is the development to years down the road, make sure that this city can operate at a level where the residents have come to expect. And that's something that the council has been working on, and the city manager has, and a proposal for a exclusive right to negotiate will be coming to the council pretty soon, so that we can see if we can select a developer to do a feasibility study. We've been here before, just recently, with a developer that found out that it wasn't feasible for them and they weren't able to move on. So we're going to keep trying because it's that important to us. So that's something that you'll see coming up here soon. So those were my comments. I'll ask, is there any other discussion or any other questions from the council? Okay. Seeing none, I don't think we have to have a motion on this one, right? It's just feedback at the, just to receive.
It's a review.
Okay, got it. Okay, and once again, I'll echo the comments from our council members. I really appreciate all the hard work from the staff, the city manager. You know, when you look at it, our budget's a lot like other big cities. We got to do the same thing. They just have a bunch more zeros behind it. So I know it's a lot of hard work and thank you so much for what you do. Okay, enough of that. We'll move on to our next item, which is staff reports and correspondence, which are in the packet. And the next thing is to let you know, our next meeting is June 23rd at 6 p.m. And with that, we are adjourned. Yes.
Good time.
So I watched